you awaken to the pale hush of morning, where the sky above is the color of dull iron and the air itself seems brittle with cold. A faint layer of frost coats the earth around you, shimmering faintly like powdered glass. Your breath curls upward in pale clouds, dissolving into the gray. You are in the heart of a Viking winter, and every sound, every sensation carries with it the weight of the season. The world is quieter, slower, as though the cold itself presses a heavy hand upon it. The shoreline stretches before you, its stones slick with frozen spray from the restless sea. The waves roll and break, slower than you expect, each crest tipped with white, then crashing against the rocks with a muted thud, as though the cold has swallowed their strength. You stand near the edge, your boots crunching against stiffened sand, and gaze outward. The horizon is blurred, where sea and sky melt into one sheet of gray. Gulls circle overhead, their cries sharper against the silence, while far offshore, the black shapes of longboats lie pulled above the tide line, their hulls rimmed with frost. You draw your cloak tighter around you, the wool thick and coarse, but not enough to keep away the bite of the wind. The fur lining scratches against your chin, carrying the faint smell of smoke from the hearth where it once hung. Even so, the chill cuts through, seeping into your skin, settling deep in your bones. Your fingers grow stiff, and you tuck them into the folds of your sleeves. Around you, the world feels paused, as if waiting. Slowly, you begin to walk along the frozen shore. The ground beneath you is uneven, frozen ridges where water once pooled now stiff with ice. You hear the crackle as each step splinters the frost, the sound carried outward across the emptiness. To your right, the sea continues its slow rhythm. To your left, the land rises in low, dark hills, patched with snow where the wind has allowed it to cling. Between rock and snow, a scattering of evergreens stands, their needles glistening with ice. They do not move, not even when the wind brushes past. As you walk, you begin to notice details. A set of footprints leading toward the boats, half filled with snow. A broken oar resting against the rocks, its surface pale and splintered. A coil of frozen rope, stiff and brittle, lying where it was dropped. These are traces of the people who live here, who endure this season with quiet persistence. Nothing is wasted and nothing is forgotten. Each tool, each mark in the snow, speaks of survival, of effort, of lives bound to the rhythm of cold and sea. Your eyes are drawn to one of the longboats closer to shore. Its prow rises high, carved into the form of a serpent, its wooden coils stiff with frost. The paint that once gleamed with color is now dulled, faded by salt and wind, but the shape remains powerful, a guardian of the vessel. The boat itself rests on logs, its hull tilted slightly, and you can see the way the planks curve together, sealed with tar and wool to keep the water out. The smell of tar lingers faintly even here, sharp and earthy against the sea air. Standing near it, you run your hand over the frozen wood. The surface is rough beneath your fingertips, ridged with age, but it feels strong, enduring. This boat has carried men across vast waters, into storms and foreign lands, and now it rests here, asleep for the winter. It is waiting, like everything else, for the thaw that will bring movement again. The sound of voices reaches you faintly, carried over the wind. You turn to see figures emerging from a small path between the hills. Wrapped in cloaks of wool and fur, they move slowly, their steps careful against the frozen ground. They carry baskets and bundles, firewood and tools, their breath visible as white clouds in the air. These are the villagers, beginning their day even in this cold. There is no pause for winter, only adjustments. The sea may freeze at its edges, the earth may harden, but life must continue. You watch as two men approach the nearest boat. They kneel beside it, their hands working at the ropes, checking knots, adjusting the logs beneath the hull. Even now, even in the frozen season, the boats are cared for. A neglected boat could split or warp under the pressure of ice and frost. To care for the boat is to care for the life of the village. For when spring comes and the sea opens fully, these vessels will carry them outward once again. Nearby, a woman bends to gather driftwood, her basket already half filled. Each stick, each branch, no matter how small, has worth. Fire is not just warmth, it is survival. The wood she carries will be dried, stored, and later burned to keep food cooking, water warm, and homes lit against the long night. You notice the way she moves carefully, her cloak brushing against the ice, her hands red from the cold but steady. The air grows colder still as the wind shifts, sweeping in off the sea. It cuts across your face, sharp enough to sting your eyes, and you pull your hood lower. For a moment, you simply stand there, listening. The crash of the waves, the cries of the birds, the faint murmur of voices, the crackle of frost underfoot, all combine into a kind of rhythm, slow and steady. It is not music in the way of instruments, but it is the music of winter life, the song of endurance. You close your eyes briefly, letting the sound wash over you. The cold seeps deeper, but instead of resisting it, you allow yourself to notice its texture, the way it sharpens your senses. The air tastes clean, stripped bare. The world smells of salt, wood, and smoke carried faintly from the village fires. Your body is heavy under the weight of the cloak, and yet there is calm here, a steadiness that makes you breathe slower, deeper. When you open your eyes, the sky has shifted slightly. The clouds have thinned, and a faint pale glow spreads near the horizon. The sun, weak and low in this season, rises slowly, casting light that does not warm but softens the edges of the world. The sea gleams faintly, a dull silver where the light strikes it, and the frost on the rocks shines brighter for a moment. The villagers, too, pause, their faces turned briefly toward the glow, acknowledging its presence. The morning stretches on. Slowly, the figures move back toward the path. Baskets filled, ropes secured, tasks complete. The longboats remain where they are, quiet and strong against the frozen shore. You stand for a while longer, feeling the hush of the season settle around you. Everything is slower, quieter, and you let that rhythm take hold of you as well. Your thoughts ease, your breath evens, and your body grows heavy, as though the winter itself is cradling you into stillness. And so, the day begins on the frozen shorelines of the Viking world, with sea and frost, with work and silence, with endurance woven into every step. You linger in this place, letting the calm spread through you as the gray sky arches overhead and the sea rolls on forever. You leave the shoreline behind, your steps carrying you toward the village nestled between low hills. The path curves gently, marked by footprints pressed into snow and frost, winding its way toward a cluster of longhouses whose dark, sloping roofs rise against the gray sky. Smoke drifts slowly from their openings, curling upward in thin streams that dissolve into the wind. The smell reaches you before the sight does. Wood smoke mingled with the faint richness of roasting meat and the sharper tang of fish drying near the walls. After the chill emptiness of the shore, the scent feels like warmth itself, wrapping around you. The longhouses stand in quiet strength, their walls built from timber and turf, their roofs layered thickly with straw thatch now dusted with snow. They are sturdy, low to the ground, designed not for beauty but for survival, keeping out the bitter winds of winter. As you approach, you notice how the snow piles up against their sides, forming natural walls, while the narrow doorways are shielded with thick hides to block the cold from rushing in. You pause at the entrance of the nearest longhouse, pushing aside the heavy hide curtain. At once, a wave of warmth envelops you, so sudden and full that your skin prickles. The light inside is dim, flickering from the central hearth where flames leap and crackle, sending sparks into the smoky air. The smell of burning pine fills the space, and your ears catch the comforting sound of wood popping in the heat. For a moment, you simply stand there, your body thawing, your eyes adjusting to the glow. The longhouse is wide and deep, built to hold an extended family through the harshest months. Wooden beams rise overhead, their surfaces blackened with years of smoke. Along the walls, raised platforms lined with furs and woven blankets serve as beds. The floor is packed earth, strewn with rushes that crackle faintly when stepped upon. At the center, the hearth burns steadily, a pillar of life in the dark season. Without it, there would be only cold, hunger, and silence. People move quietly within the space. A woman stirs a pot suspended above the fire, the wooden ladle tracing slow circles through a thick stew. The smell of barley and root vegetables rises, along with a faint tang of dried fish added for flavor. A child sits nearby, holding a small wooden cup, waiting patiently as the warmth of the fire paints his face with light. His cheeks are flushed, his hair tousled from sleep, and his eyes drift half shut in drowsy comfort. You settle onto one of the benches near the fire, the wood warm where others have sat before. The heat seeps through your cloak, loosening the stiffness in your shoulders, softening the ache in your hands. You watch the flames leap and twist, their light reflected in the polished metal of a hanging cauldron and the gleam of a carved drinking horn resting nearby. The fire does not just warm the body, it steadies the mind. Its rhythm, the crackle and hiss, becomes a lullaby of its own. Conversation drifts softly through the room, low voices mingling with the crackle of the fire. A man speaks of the weather, noting the ice on the river and how thick it has grown. Another mentions the stores of dried fish and grain, counting quietly to ensure enough remains for the weeks still to come. The words are practical, steady, but beneath them lies something deeper. The understanding that survival here depends on preparation, on vigilance, on the fire that never dies. You watch as a young girl carries an armful of wood to the hearth. She kneels, placing each log with care, as though the act itself were a ritual. The flames catch eagerly, flaring brighter, throwing new shadows across the walls. For a brief moment, the room glows, each face illuminated, then softens again into gentle half-light. The fire is both heart and soul of the house, demanding respect, returning warmth in exchange. Beyond the hearth, daily life continues in quiet rhythms. A woman kneads dough on a low table, her hands dusted with flour, pressing and folding with practiced ease. The smell of fresh bread rises faintly, mingling with the stew. A man sits near the door, repairing a leather strap, his knife moving carefully through the tough hide. Beside him, another polishes an iron axe head, rubbing it with oil until it gleams. Every action, every small task, is part of the greater whole, keeping the family alive, keeping the house strong, carrying them through the endless nights of winter. You lean back slightly, letting your body grow heavy against the bench. The heat makes your eyelids heavy, your thoughts slower. You notice the details more keenly now. The flicker of shadows across the beams, the hum of quiet conversation, the sound of a dog shifting in its sleep near the door, its tail thumping softly against the floor. These are the textures of winter life, woven together into something steady and enduring. Time seems to slow within the walls. Outside, the wind moans faintly against the thatch, carrying snow across the hills. But here, inside, there is peace. You feel it settle into you, a calm born not of silence, but of presence. The steady fire, the warmth of bodies gathered close, the unbroken rhythm of small, careful tasks. It is a peace that does not erase the cold or the hardship, but holds them at bay, giving space for breath, for rest. As the stew is ladled into wooden bowls, the family gathers close. They eat in quiet gratitude, the warmth of the food spreading through them, a slice of bread passed hand to hand, a small laugh shared between siblings, a sigh of contentment as the hunger eases. These are not grand moments, but they are precious, as vital as any victory in battle or voyage at sea. You dip a piece of bread into the thick stew, feeling its heat in your fingers, tasting the earthy blend of barley and root. The flavor is simple, but it carries with it something deeper. The knowledge of care, of work, of a meal that binds people together in the heart of the season. Each bite softens the edges of the cold, and you find your body sinking further into warmth, into stillness. When the meal is done, bowls set aside, the family settles into their places along the walls. Children curl into furs, their breaths slow and even as sleep takes them. Adults sit quietly, mending, carving, whispering low. The fire continues its steady rhythm, burning down to embers that glow like red stars in the dimness. Smoke curls lazily toward the roof, finding its way out through the small hole above. You let your eyes close for a moment, listening. The crackle of fire, the whisper of wind against the walls, the faint rustle of furs as someone shifts into comfort. These sounds blend into something soothing, something that draws you deeper into calm. The longhouse breathes around you, alive, steady, patient. And as you rest within its warmth, you understand. This is how winter is endured, not with conquest or bravado, but with hearth fires that glow, with steady hands that tend, with warmth shared between those who gather close. It is quiet, it is ordinary, but it is enough. The warmth of the longhouse lingers with you as you step outside once more, though the cold strikes quickly, wrapping around you with sharp fingers. The air is heavy with frost, your breath rising in pale clouds, curling away into the gray morning sky. You pull your cloak tighter, feeling its weight settle across your shoulders, the rough weave scratching faintly against your skin. In this season, clothing is not a matter of fashion or vanity. It is armor, a shield against the relentless bite of winter. You glance down at what you wear. Thick wool spun from sheep kept through the summer, now carded and woven by practiced hands. The tunic hangs long, brushing against your thighs, its sleeves loose but layered with an undershirt of softer linen. Around your waist, a woven belt holds the fabric in place, and from it dangles a knife in a leather sheath, a tool as necessary as the clothes themselves. Over it all rests a heavy cloak, clasped at the shoulder with a simple brooch. The wool is dense, the fibers still carrying the faint smell of lanolin, a natural oil that repels water and wards off snow. You remember the work that went into such garments. Women bent over looms, the steady beat of the shuttle passing back and forth, their hands swift, as they wove patterns of plain weave or simple twill. Long hours spinning yarn from raw fleece, the drop spindle twirling between careful fingers, the sound of wool being carded, pulled, and twisted into thread. Each garment carries not just warmth, but time, effort, the patience of many days and nights. As you walk further into the village, you see others dressed much the same. Men wearing cloaks fastened tightly, their feet bound in shoes of stitched leather, lined with tufts of wool for insulation. Some wear hats pulled low over their ears, knitted caps or sewn from animal hide, trimmed with fur. Women's dresses are layered, long and flowing but practical, the hems tucked to keep from dragging through the snow. Over their shoulders hang aprons, the straps crossing in front, secured with small brooches. Even children are bundled in miniature versions, their round faces peeking out from beneath hoods, cheeks flushed with cold. Fur, too, plays its part. You notice the glint of fox pelts draped around shoulders, the heavy warmth of bearskin cloaks on those who must work outdoors, soft rabbit fur-lined mittens, keeping fingers nimble even when the wind cuts sharp. Some families keep reindeer hides, the thick fur pressed into boots, their hollow hairs trapping heat. The scent of leather and fur mixes with the smell of wood smoke, becoming the fragrance of winter itself. You brush your fingers along the edge of your cloak, feeling the coarse weave, and imagine what it would be like without it. The wind slicing through bare skin, the ache settling deep in your bones. For the Vikings, survival in winter is bound not only to fire and food, but to these layers of fabric and fur. Each piece is a boundary between life and death, between endurance and suffering. Nearby, a man hauls a sled loaded with wood, his shoulders hunched against the weight. His cloak whips in the wind, its edges dusted with snow. He pauses to pull the fur hood tighter, then leans once more into the task. You hear the creak of leather straps, the crunch of boots in snow, the low grunt of effort. His movements are steady, practiced. He knows the rhythm of work in the cold, the way layers must breathe but still protect, the balance between warmth and mobility. A woman passes carrying a basket of dried fish, her hands shielded by thick woolen mittens. The basket's weight pulls at her arms, but her steps are firm. Her cloak shifts slightly, revealing the apron beneath, its edges embroidered with simple patterns. Even in the harshest season, there is room for beauty, for a line of color stitched into gray fabric, for patterns that speak of family, of place. Such details carry pride, a quiet statement against the monotony of winter. You feel the texture of the ground beneath your boots, the packed snow crunching softly. Each step is cushioned by layers of fur within the leather. Without them, the cold would pierce quickly, numbing toes until they could no longer move. It is a lesson learned long ago, tested through generations. Survival rests in preparation, in knowing what the cold demands and meeting it with patience. The air shifts as the wind picks up, whistling faintly between the longhouses. You pull your cloak tighter again, grateful for the clasp that holds it secure. Around you, others do the same. The movement is instinctive, shared, as natural as breathing. In this land, clothing is not just a personal choice. It is a communal knowledge, passed down, improved upon, carried forward. Later, you step back into the longhouse, shaking snow from your cloak. The warmth returns instantly, seeping through your layers, turning the wool soft and pliant once more. You hang the cloak near the fire, careful not to scorch it, watching as steam curls from its edges. The smell of damp wool rises, sharp but familiar, filling the air with another reminder of the season. You sit once more, your hands resting on your knees, and look around at the others gathered there. Each garment tells a story. The fur that speaks of a successful hunt, the wool that whispers of hours spent at the loom, the stitched leather that carries the shape of careful hands. Together, they form a tapestry of survival, woven not from riches or jewels, but from necessity, from skill, from the will to endure. The fire crackles, throwing shadows across cloaks and tunics, hoods and boots. You let your eyes trace the folds of fabric, the way the light plays across them, the quiet dignity in their shapes. These are not costumes of warriors or raiders, not the armor of battle, but the true attire of life, the clothing that shields, sustains, and allows the people of this land to face the long, endless winter. Your body grows heavier as you sit, the warmth pressing deeper, the layers around you softening into comfort. The hum of voices fades into a low murmur, the fire's rhythm carrying you further into stillness. You close your eyes for a moment, and in the darkness behind your lids, you still feel the cloak's weight, the fur's softness, the wool's warmth. They linger like invisible hands holding you steady, safe against the night. And as the winter deepens outside, as snow gathers higher against the walls, you understand. It is not strength alone that carries people through, but layers of fabric, of fur, of patience, of care. Each layer builds upon the last, weaving together a shield strong enough to face the cold, yet soft enough to let you rest within it.